Hey there folks, Wrel here. In the background you'll see some gameplay from a few different games as I share some thoughts on better gaming. And today I wanted to muse a little bit about how payment models, particularly pre-orders and early access, affect us as players and people. In the gaming industry, the most prevalent business model right now is free-to-play. Download the game for free, pay microtransactions to get stuff if you want it. In the past, subscription-based models were really big. You pay per month, and then you get to play the game. This model is unfortunately going away, which in my opinion is leading to a decline in quality of games in general nowadays, but that's a topic for another time. You've also got your single-purchase games. You buy the game, you get to play it, though the bigger single-purchase games nowadays also come with season passes tacked on, which are basically DLC that you're buying in advance. So you buy the game, you get to play it, but if you pay more, then you get to also play with all the new stuff that we're going to be periodically releasing. And this is where things get a little bit sketchy for me. Hanging the promise of new content over your head has become the standard for the gaming industry. And while it could be interpreted functionally as being the same thing as just buying an expansion pack, the real difference is that it is legitimately a promise of new content, which is in no way in the best interests of the player. It's in the best interests of the company, 100%. You give us your money now and hope we make good later. Beyond season passes though, this paying for promise mentality is exemplified in today's exclusive pre-orders and Kickstarter campaigns. Pre-ordering a game was originally meant to reserve a copy of that game for you, so you wouldn't walk into GameStop and then be staring at an empty shelf. But in today's age, digital downloads are the norm, and outside of collector's editions with tangible, physical components, pre-ordering is just a way to squeeze you into paying for something that doesn't yet exist, usually with the temptation of a digital reward tacked on. Now, of course I'm going to want the exclusive pants, or the pet, or the gun, or the camo, or the founder's title that comes with the pre-order. Of course I am, because if your game ends up not sucking, then I want to play the game with the special thing, opposed to playing the game without the special thing. And psychologically, it's hilarious, because we know better than that. We do. We know that we shouldn't spend money on a game from a company with a sketchy track record. We know that we shouldn't spend money on a game that we don't have the time to play. We know that we really shouldn't spend money on pre-orders or Kickstarter at all unless we have the money to throw away or genuinely care about the development of that product. But what we know and what we do are two very different things. Marketing is a powerful tool, and we're more susceptible to it than we'd like to think. When a game is on pre-order, or an item is on sale, or a season pass is available for a limited time, it may not be that we actually want what's being offered, it's just as much that we're fighting the anxiety of not having that thing. In general, humans are greedy, they're impulsive and egocentric, we are jealous of what others have, and we compensate for our own deficiencies through material possessions. We enjoy the status that comes with owning things that others do not. Fortunately, the digital era makes it easy to get a leg up on that imaginary audience that you're competing with. With a lot of Kickstarter campaigns and pre-orders, you're also promised early access to the game, which caters specifically to that status-oriented mindset. We get to be a part of an elite group. We get to be the first to talk about the game with all of our friends, and when someone comes into the game a year from now, we can tout that we've been playing the game for a long, long time already. Even outside of Kickstarter and pre-ordering, many games nowadays offer early access right up front. You pay and then you get access to the unfinished game, also known as the beta, or the alpha, or the technical alpha, or the don't complain because we're still in beta, or the we don't really know when this thing is actually launching, but we're still going to put microtransactions in it for you, beta. And if you do opt into early access and you genuinely enjoy the game for a while, then you're getting your money's worth, right? One question to think about though is in regards to burnout. If you have already purchased the game early and it's a buggy mess, but you still get to be a part of the game's development, which is a line that has greater or lesser meaning depending on who the developers are you actually going to enjoy that game as much as you would have a year from now? H1Z1 is a good example to use. The game right now it's whatever. It's buggy, hackers are rampant, there's still no end game, there is no incentive not to KOS, base building isn't there, etc., but the game is still in development, right? When we jump in a game for the first time, it's exciting, it's new, there's so much to explore and to learn, and as we become more veteran, more knowledgeable, that shiny newness fades. We more easily notice the flaws that the game has, and eventually, we get burnt out. That probably goes double for a game that has flaws actively ruining your experience, like getting insta-gibbed by teleporting hackers, or like crashing to desktop, then logging back in to find yourself dead and all of your stuff gone. And let's say that over a year's time, these flaws will be fixed. They'll be 100% fixed. The hackers won't exist, the base building will be great, the crashes to desktop won't be a thing, and technically, we should be able to enjoy the game now, right? And we probably will, to an extent, but the question though, is that if you have early access and you check back in on a game every once in a while, are you still going to receive the same level of enjoyment that you could have had if you were a fresh player playing the more finished game, the game where you weren't getting burnt by its flaws during early development? If you expand on that concept a little bit, and let's say that it holds up for a single player, what about many players? When the community is getting burnt by a game in early development, does it kill the enjoyment of people choosing to jump into the game later in that game's development, later in its life? From a developer's perspective, how many games go through early access and eventually become more finished titles, but still slowly die on the vine as the game loses popularity, or as the community becomes less and less tolerant of the stuff that they have to deal with? Now, I want to clarify and emphasize here that I am deliberately talking about games that go early access just for the sake of going early access. Games that aren't really fleshed out, aren't solid yet, and instead are inviting the player to take a chance on a substandard product. The point that I'm trying to make here is that perhaps early access is something we think we want because it's new, because it's now. How much damage does that deal to the game in the long run? Would it be better to release a more finished title than to start trying to rake in money as soon as you have a minimum viable product? Keep in mind here though that I'm deliberately talking about the bad eggs. Some games actually do early access right, which is to say, after they have something worthwhile, something solid, something that can stand on its own from a gameplay perspective, and could really just move into the content generation and expansion portion of its life cycle. One game that I think has done early access very well, in my opinion, is Dirty Bomb. Dirty Bomb is a game by Splash Damage, which is the company that made Brink. I had zero clue that Dirty Bomb was even a thing until Kudo Chop told me. The game was kept surprisingly low-key. Early in the closed beta, it was very, very limited. They had periodic play sessions, usually every couple of weekends or so, while they took the time to develop and fine-tune their mechanics. And during this time, everything was unlocked and was completely free to use. In other words, they were using the phrase closed beta in the way that it was originally intended to be used, which is to say, a period where you can be testing and finalizing the game while not missing the majority of its core features. Now, as of making this video, you can pick up Dirty Bomb on early access and actually enjoy it as a mostly finished product. They're to the point where they can just add stuff instead of having to completely reinvent the game's mechanics or fix game-breaking bugs. It's early access done right. So where do we go from here? There's been a lot of press lately that's basically trying to take a stand against pre-orders. This is well-intentioned, but I don't think I agree with it, mostly because I really like stuff. It's a weakness that I share with the vast majority of gamers and human beings, but also because there are upsides to Kickstarter and pre-ordering and early access. A personal example of what I feel was the right reason to pre-order something was Star Citizen's Kickstarter campaign. I saw the campaign and I made a conscious decision to support the game and its development, because I strongly believed in Chris Roberts' mission, and I wanted to help him achieve that dream. I still do. And I also went into it knowing that it's not a game that I'd really be interested in playing, because I don't typically enjoy space sims. I mean, the last space sim that I actually cared about was Escape Velocity back in the late 90s, when I was in middle school. I might play Star Citizen's FPS portion if that gets more fleshed out, but honestly, I don't really care one way or the other. It was a cause that I wanted to support. Kickstarter in particular is a great place to support developers who actually have an interest in putting out a game that's worthwhile, instead of a game that's there primarily to cash out on a gamer's short attention span. Think about the Call of Duty, the Battlefield, and the Assassin's Creed franchises, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. Being able to rally the support of a community to help fund your projects helps reshape the industry for the better. One thing I think we need to be aware of though, at the very least, is that not all developers are going to hold up to their side of the bargain. Unfortunately, the ubiquity of early access and Kickstarter has dulled our more cautious side, which is something that I think we do need to fight, or else we just encourage companies to keep doing what they're doing. We need to think a bit more, we need to research a little bit more, and we need to support games that we think have a legitimate shot of being successful. The developers we think will respect us as players and consumers. We need to maybe focus less on ourselves and the stuff that we can get, and more on the goal and the impact of our actions. That's difficult to do. It's very, very difficult to do, but if we at least give it a shot every once in a while, maybe we can eventually start to weed out the bad practices and nudge the industry toward a better direction. If this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and I'm curious as to how you feel about beta, early access, pre-orders, microtransactions, payment models in general, and how they impact us as gamers and gaming communities. So leave those thoughts in the comment section down below. Thanks very much, folks. Wrel signing off.